because it's 8:31. So calling the meeting for the Planning and Economic Development Council to order at 8:31. And we'll start with the minutes. Councilmember Lawson, did you have a chance to review them?
Oh yeah, I reviewed them. I have no changes.
Okay, very good. And I am good with the minutes. Hopefully we'll get some Councilmember Sundberg on shortly, and he can let us know if he's okay with them as well. So we'll go ahead and start with the first item, which is the Fitzsimmons, Colfax, and 13th Avenue Station. And let's see. Daniel, are you presenting?
Yes, I'll kick us off here. Okay. Good morning to the committee, staff, and others. If you'll allow me a moment to get slide deck shared. Okay, I hope you all can see that. Good morning, I'm Daniel Krasnowski. I'm joined this morning by my co-presenter, Jennifer Orozco. We're both with the city's Planning and Development Services Department. This item is a update on some exciting new development opportunities in and around the Colfax and 13th Avenue station areas. Our presentation is going to touch on a number of points, including a little bit of background about what's been going on from a planning and development standpoint in this area. Want to make the case that now is a great time to do some planning and update some plans in this area to take advantage of some new development opportunities. And then we'll provide a little bit of information on process, schedule, and public engagement as we do dive back into this area with some planning. So on your screen now, you should be able to see a map with our study area highlighted in red. The area that we'll be talking about today and in this future planning activities really surrounds the Fitzsimmons Colfax station area and the 13th station area. You can see those highlighted in purple. The area that we're talking about is really kind of within the about a quarter mile to half mile surrounding those, sort of straddling north and south of Colfax, and sort of largely just east of 225. There's been a lot of activity in this area over the past 15 years. This slide shows a very, very condensed list of planning and development that's been occurring in the area. I wanted to note that in 2009, about 15 years ago, our current station area plan was adopted. This was done in preparation for light rail service that would come several years later to Aurora. So in addition to getting light rail service through this area, there's been a lot of great development that's been occurring, including the Hyatt Regency opening in 2016. The Rocky Mountain VA Medical Campus opened in 2018, and other development sort of up and down the Colfax corridor, as I'm sure many of y'all are familiar with. In 2021, RTD, our transit provider, adopted what they call an equitable transit-oriented development policy. And this really opened the door for using really kind of underutilized transit properties, station areas, and opening that up to development of housing, especially affordable housing. So this was a policy change on RTD's side that really sort of coincides with the city's planning and policies towards continuing to develop housing and transit-oriented development areas as well. In 2021 through 2023, the city developed a 13th Avenue multimodal corridor study that was completed, talking about getting people to and through this area using transit, bike, pedestrian, and other modes. Also in that time period, the city staff began discussions with some property owners in this area regarding residential developments, sort of at and near the 13th Avenue station. As well as in 2022, city staff, as well as a number of professionals, did a design workshop to look at development opportunity adjacent to the 13th Avenue station. So the reason we're before the committee this morning is to sort of preview an update of the station area plan. This plan is now 15 years old. It was done before light rail service, before the city's comprehensive plan and unified development ordinance were adopted. It was done before the city's housing strategy was adopted and began implementation. And so really the station area plan needs to be updated really in light of these plans and policies that the city has adopted. And so that we can really look at this area and apply all of these policies and planning to the area. But even more importantly is there's a number of near-term development opportunities adjacent to these stations. And this planning that we're talking about this morning really sort of paves the way to the city being able to shape and support some really great new residential development in the area. So at this point, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Jennifer, who's going to talk about those development opportunities in a little bit more detail. And then we'll finish up with a little bit of process and timeline.
Good morning. I appreciate Daniel letting me jump in the middle of his very concise and well-crafted presentation. I have a ton of content that I hope to share with you all. We're very active on the urban renewal front in this area. And so the station area plan and a potential urban renewal plan would work in concert in this area. And I wanted to speak about two different development opportunities we're looking at. We're looking at future development on the RTD property and on the Bach Homes property. This is a property that's south of the RTD station area across the Tollgate Creek. And both of these properties are large. We're looking at, over 14 acres for each of them, and they're ideal infill sites, but they have an obstacle. The reason they're still there is because you can't get to them. There's a single point of access to each of these properties, and from a life and fire standpoint, that does not support dense development. So in order to develop these sites to their highest potential, we need to connect them with a bridge, which would provide secondary access for both of these development sites. And with that bridge, we unlock a ton of potential housing in the area, up to 1,000 units, depending on how the site plans are rolled out. So this is a little more detailed view of the bridge. This is a concept diagram put together by our Public Works Department back in 2019, 2020 timeframe. And at that point, the cost of the bridge was roughly estimated to be $7.6 million, and that was for the bridge plus the northern access road. We all know about inflation, so our guess is that the number is higher now, and we will get into more detailed engineering and get a new number in the very near future as Bach Homes continues with their site planning. But this is the obstacle as it was quantified in 2020. And as Daniel mentioned, this is a great site. It has jobs everywhere around it. It's perfect for housing. We've got the Fitzsimmons campus, we've got Buckley, we have logistics along the I-70 corridor and up towards the airport. So this is a great site for workforce housing, hopefully on the RTD property, and even market rate housing. Just housing in general is something we desperately need, and this is a great spot for it. And as Daniel mentioned, we've completed our 13th Avenue multimodal corridor study, but we also have new infrastructure at this station. Within the last couple of years, we had trail extensions that went through our site, connecting it up to the campus and then all the way down to City Hall. And so now you can bike wherever you'd like to go in a really efficient manner and not need to cross surface streets. This goal of getting new housing at the station fits perfectly with our housing strategy. I just highlighted 4 of the goals that we really hit well with this. We would be using publicly owned land. We'd be hitting on sustainability, we'd be expanding the inventory, and we'd be doing something innovative. I don't think we haven't actually built on RTD property in the city before. So this would be a new project for the city. Daniel mentioned RTD's TOD, equitable TOD policy. This is a great change from RTD in the last couple of years. They've really increased their flexibility for using their sites for housing. They are being more flexible on replacement parking, on shared parking, and they have a goal to have 35% of all units built on RTD property to be affordable. And so that fits very well with our goals and our housing strategy for the city. Additionally, there's money for affordable housing. We have DOLA rolling out several different grant programs, most recently the Strong Communities Infrastructure Grant Program. This is a program that we've recently applied to, hoping to get some funding for this particular bridge. We're in the process. We have an interview with DOLA in the next few weeks. We'll keep people posted on as we move forward through that. But we're really hopeful. In addition to that, there's the funding from the voter approved Proposition 123. The city put in its commitment and it was accepted. So we will be moving forward on that. And then finally wanted to mention the governor's proposal, although it didn't go forward in the last session. We're all assuming some form of it will be back in the future. So just pointing out that we're in alignment with a lot of state goals. Here's a map of an area that was the subject of a 2019 blight study. This area has been declared blighted by council previously. So we're well on our way to establishing an urban renewal area here. Once an urban renewal area is created, we can use tax increment financing to help pay for some of the infrastructure costs, including the bridge. So this would be the area for the plan, and then we would probably commission an update to this blight study before we approve the final plan. But this is the area that we're looking at. As Daniel mentioned, we hosted a housing charrette in October 2022, and this was jointly hosted by Housing and Community Development and Development Services. We each paid half, and we hired an outside consultant to come and look at the site with us. And we were looking at the RTD site in particular, and to explore what types of housing we could get on that site and how much would fit. And so we took outside consultants. We took our neighbor to the south, Bach Homes, flew in from Utah. They joined us. We had representatives from RTD. And then we included a host of city staff from all different departments so that we could get everyone involved that would need to be involved. And to look at, we walked the site, we looked at the challenges and the opportunities, and we spent half a day back at City Hall testing out different concept scenarios. So the outcome of that day of hard work was polished by our architect, and he came up with this is scheme 1. And this looks at a medium density scenario, which would be around 200, 240 units. It preserves half of the RTD parking, which is being conservative. Actually, this station has the second lowest ridership in the entire RTD network. So on an average day, there are maybe 3 cars in this parking lot. So we were being conservative, and we left half of the parking with this scenario. And we put in 4-story affordable housing with some tuck under and surface parking. And in that configuration, you could get about 200 or more units. Scheme 2 is actually a 2-phase scheme, and this is the initial phase. And it also preserves half of the parking. But then if you look at the far south of the drawing, it proposes some townhomes along the creek. Hopefully those could be for sale, affordable. Above that, it looked at putting some permanent supportive housing, which is a smaller project. And then above that, a larger project that's a 4-story wrap of attainable housing. And then in a second phase, it would involve taking all of the RTD parking, building a structure that would replace some of the RTD parking, and then also provide parking for some additional higher density residential, which could be mixed income project on the far north side of the site. And this scenario would get up to 340 to 400 units with both phases. This is a preview of some of the ideas Bach Homes is looking at for their property to the south. They're still playing with a lot of different concepts, and they have yet to submit their site plan. They're still finalizing that right now. But this talks about different ideas. They have townhomes around the edges. They have podium. They have tuck under. They've looked at a lot of different configurations, and they would do it in a phased manner with, one building at a time. But ultimately, they see about 600 market rate units in this area. And market rate in Aurora for apartments is typically 85 to 95% of the local AMI. So it is definitely still hitting the middle of the market. And Bach is really excited about this opportunity. Their rezoning was recently approved at council in June unanimously, which was a huge victory. We're really excited about that. And they're eager to move forward. A little bit about the dollars. As I mentioned, there's state money for affordable housing, and so we are doing all that we can to find grants that would help pay for the bridge. And also Bach Homes bought the property knowing its obstacles, and so they are prepared to design and construct and front fund the bridge. And this would be under the assumption that we would have an agreement with the Urban Renewal authority to reimburse them for portions of the bridge using TIF, which would be generated by property tax increment. And then supporting all of this, of course, back to Daniel, we'll go back to the regularly scheduled programming, is the station area plan. The station area plan helps to outline what types, the design and the character of the development that the city would like to see here. Urban Renewal doesn't really speak to that as much. So the stationary plan will be really key in guiding these development proposals at both of these sites.
So just the last couple bits of information for you all. This is a proposed project schedule, with the committee's direction to proceed with this project. This outlines sort of kicking off the project really sort of immediately. The station area plan portion of the project and the urban renewal plan portion of the project will run largely concurrently. We'll utilize sort of a concurrent process, especially when reaching out to the public to talk about what's going on in their neighborhood in developing this station area plan, which is the basis for the urban renewal plan. We anticipate first public meeting with stakeholders in the area this fall, and a second public meeting winter towards the end of the year or into the new year. And that allows us to really finalize the station area plan portion of this by Q1 2024. The urban renewal plan is a little bit more complicated of a process, and that will continue into 2024 and really wrap up. Kind of depends on agreements and the development partner timeline, Bach Homes timeline. But that should wrap sometime in 2024. Speaking of public engagement, we do propose 2 rounds of engagement. We'll be reaching out to the adjacent neighborhoods, including the Meadows Mobile Home Park residents, which are sort of immediately adjacent to the 13th Avenue station. There's established neighborhoods to the east and west of here that we'll reach out to those residents. We'll talk to major property owners. I'll continue to work with RTD. Anschutz as a major employer in the area and located very close to the study area. We'll work with them, as well as area developers and businesses. We also intend for an internal working group within the city to pull together the resources of our Housing and Community Services Department, Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, and other departments as needed. So that concludes our presentation. Really the question for the committee is, would you like us to proceed with the concurrent planning projects as we described them today? And we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. appreciate the presentation. Councilmember Lawson, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I think this is a great, unique project because of all the different types that could possibly happen. So I really think this would be great for that area. Just a couple questions in general regarding the bridge. So based on the presentation that you presented today, it looks like you're just going to probably depend on state funding grants and also developer I guess, funding for this bridge. Are you guys going to be looking at even some more grants from the federal level? I sit on National League of Cities, and they're always talking about reconnecting communities, the neighborhood access equity program that's part of the Infrastructure and Investment Job Act. Are you guys going to look for any type of federal type of maybe grants to maybe help with this project, with the bridge project?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have looked into that. In terms of federal transportation dollars, we've been told that the bridge is not a great candidate for that type of thing because those typically go to regional improvements, and this is a very neighborhood level improvement. But you're right, in other federal realms, like maybe HUD, there might be a better fit for us. And so we are continually on the lookout for that sort of thing. One of the great things about having Bach as a partner is letting them design and construct it does keep costs down. And when you federalize projects, you can take a lot longer to get things done and you pay very high wages and it can really add to the cost of a project. So if we can help Bach do it, it will be more cost effective. But yes, we're exploring all the different options.
Okay, and the reason why I brought that up, and I didn't think about it from that perspective, when we do our advocacy, we did, when we went out to DC, the Alameda corridor, I guess it is more of a regional because it the connectivity to 225. And so I was just asking about that because there are certain programs that, I don't know if it would have been in line with this one, but just asking about that as well. I know it's kind of hard to get the grant dollars from the federal level, but sometimes it's good to have those type of opportunities. So thank you for clarifying that. The next question I have is in particularly dense areas, and I know you guys are going to have the neighborhood meetings. One thing that I find, and just driving through Northwest Aurora and some of the neighborhoods in and around Aurora in general, when there's a lot of street parking, sometimes it's hard to see stop signs or some type of signage. And I hope that in this area, I know you guys do a traffic study, and I know those kind of, I'm hitting the horse way before everything is being looked at. But sometimes I think we have to be a little proactive. With dense areas like this, I'm hoping that there's going to be looking at, especially if there's street parking, a lot of signage that has to go in, because this is going to be pretty dense. If it happens, there's going to be a lot of movement. And I know we're going to try to encourage transit, but there's still going to be the car people. There's still going to be people who are going to get in their car, even if they work at the hospital, to just, go there. So will that be, I see that in your planning, you're going to be having these different engagement meetings and considerations. When will that come into play about the actual traffic pattern for for this development consideration?
Sure, that's a great question. I think there's probably a few answers to that. I think one source for information about what's working or not working in terms of transportation and traffic and stuff like that is those local neighbors. They live it every day, and that's certainly a topic we can dive into as we do that public outreach with the folks who live in the area. With all redevelopment projects, you're fitting something into an existing an area, and so that does require sort of looking at how things work and how things are going to change, and how you're going to fit this new development into an existing environment. We'll certainly do that. That's one of the reasons we want to bring in our transportation planning department and public works department into this process as well, to understand what sort of signage or other improvements that need to be made to be able to accommodate bringing people into the area, whether they're new residents or new users to transit. And then, of course, all of these projects have to go through our city's development process, in which they're reviewed for their traffic and transportation effects.
Well, I'm glad that's going to be considered because, that area is very dense. I mean, and it is when people are parking along, And there's, you know, it goes up to, it is, I mean, I have seen some accidents. And I think if we could be as proactive on some things as we develop, it may be easier to, you know, when people are asking for all these different stop signs and stuff later, if we could try to be a little bit more proactive, I think it helps make it actually the safety in the area better. But also we're kind of catching some of the things that we can, even in these type of tight developments. That's all the questions I have, Councilmember Bergan. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I approve it moving forward as well, so.
Great. And I just had a couple things. So Bach Homes owns their parcel, which is about 14 acres, and then RTD owns the other. I just want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So on the RTD, who would be developing? I mean, Bach Homes, obviously the developer, they're going to develop those units. Who would be developing the RTD site?
RTD would need to issue an RFP asking for development partners on that site. We would have a huge amount of input on that and helping them craft it. It would be kind of a partnership effort, but they would take the lead because it is their property.
Okay.
And so any development that happens there does need to be approved by the RTD board. But we're queuing everything up to show them how interested we are in this site and how we are working proactively to solve the development challenges. For years, the challenge at this site has been access.
Right.
And to the extent that we can solve that, we're making a really solid case to RTD that, hey, you're not using your land for the highest and best use. It's a prairie, it's, you know, it's grass and empty parking lot.
Right.
So let's build some homes for people that need them.
So basically, they would just be allowing that land to be, I mean, are they conveying the land to the city?
It depends. They do things, it's very site specific how they handle it. They do have a preference for long-term leases, which actually works okay for affordable housing for the land to be owned. The underlying land is owned by a different entity and then it's leased for housing. That's something that could happen here. That would be complicated. If we went that route, it would be complicated to do any ownership housing, but not out of the question. We'd have to work on it with RTD.
Okay, so that all that is yet to be really negotiated and so forth. So, but first step is, I know you're going to do the engagement public meetings, but isn't the first step to make this a urban renewal area?
Yes, we are working towards that.
Okay.
We have a draft urban renewal plan, and then we need to bring that to the AURA board, let them take a look at that. But we also need to begin negotiations with our taxing partners. And the step of initiating that requires some pretty detailed calculations. So we're kind of waiting on Bach Homes to better quantify what they are going to be developing so that we can come up with some estimates of the increment that would be generated. And then we'd have some numbers that we could share with our partners and start negotiations.
Okay, and Bach Homes would be doing a metro district, I assume?
That's an option. I don't know that they've decided yet how they want to finance the various parts of their development, but yes, a metro district is a solid option.
Okay, I think that's all I had, just looking at my notes. Oh, you mentioned the governor's 213. You know, that shouldn't even have to happen. We are looking at as a model for the whole state with all the projects that we have planned in our future years. So hopefully they recognize our vision. So thank you for that presentation. And we'll move on to the 3B, which is the original Aurora Special District discussion. I don't know if Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Gardner has joined us.
Yep, I'm on.
You are on. Do you want to start off with this, or does staff want to start off?
Yeah, I could give a brief introduction and then turn it over to staff if that's all right with the committee.
Sounds good.
Thank you. So yeah, I'll just kind of briefly introduce this item and talk a little bit about the history and the background and kind of how we got to where we are today. So the item in front of you today is a proposal to hire Puma to do two different things. One is to work with the district, and when I refer to the district, we're talking about the area Northwest Aurora, kind of referred to colloquially as original Aurora, That's typically Colfax from Yosemite to Florence, the Arts District, or downtown Aurora, or it's gone by several different names over the years, but most commonly referred to as Original Aurora. And so this proposal is to hire an outside consultant, Puma, to both work with the district to first create a small area plan. And so I first want to talk about what a small area plan is. A small area plan is a document that's used a lot in other cities. Denver uses them a lot. A lot of other larger cities use them as well to really guide what development is going to look like. For those who aren't familiar with the history of the area, there have been several kind of entities and several different iterations of plans and business groups and just kind of thoughts, I guess, for lack of a better term, of what that area was going to look like over the years. And when I say over the years, I'm talking about going back, 30, 40, 50 years. There have been groups that have been kind of working on what that area was going to look like in Aurora. And so what a small area plan does is takes in community feedback, talks to various stakeholders, businesses, residents, the city, obviously, developers, and creates a plan that says this is what development is going to look like in this area. And why a small area plan is a good thing is because it creates a vision for an area, so you're not having ad hoc development. Right now, we have had some really positive momentum. I think staff has done a good job, especially with our restaurant program. We've brought in some really positive things to the area: Bon and Butter, and Baba and Pop's Karaoke's, and Lady Justice Brewing, and Cerebral Brewing. And there's really starting to be some positive momentum. But I think what the piece is missing is that a lot of that is happening on an ad hoc basis. And what I think the city needs, and what council needs more specifically, is a document that's going to guide that development going forward, that's going to say, this is what we want this development to look like. Puma will help us create that document by reaching out to those various stakeholders, developers, business groups, businesses that are in the area. And we will be able to say, this is what we want here. This is what we want there. This is what we want this to look like. This is how we want this area to develop. And ultimately, it can be a revenue generating area for the city. I think that's ultimately what I think we all want here. I know the Arts District has kind of been a bit of a bugaboo over the years, but I think my opinion, and I think a lot of my colleagues that I've talked to on council recognize that we are a district that can also be an economic development. And I think we can do that right if we have a plan for how we're going to develop that area. And how you develop that area is you have arts, but you also support that with revenue generating businesses like bars and restaurants and other things like that. We've started that process, but I think we need a plan for what that's going to look like. So that's one piece of it. The next piece of this project is the creation of a taxing district. So the document that's in the backup talks about two different kind of possible district opportunities. One is an improvement district, and the other one is a downtown development authority. The downtown development authority is a little bit more unique, and people may not be as familiar with that. State law, and I think staff will get into this a little bit more, but state law allows each municipality to have one identified DDA. Aurora does not currently have an identified DDA. Denver's, just for reference sake for the committee, Denver's identified DDA is Union Station. So that, for those who are familiar with the redevelopment that took place in Union Station, that was the area that they developed or identified as their DDA. And by creating that taxing district, they were able to capture some of that revenue, take that revenue and do improvements within the district. And so going back over the last several months, there have been several meetings with myself, city staff, and other businesses in the area. And quite a few of the businesses in the area have expressed an interest in forming a taxing district to help fund some of the improvements that are needed. I mentioned some of the businesses before, and I don't want to. I hesitate. I don't always like picking out specific businesses because when you don't mention others, it feels like you're leaving somebody out. But I will say we have some really, really high caliber businesses that have moved into the area. Just a couple I will mention again. Bon and Butter, Thwa, who owns Bon and Butter, her family is the owner of New Saigon Bakery in Denver. They have decades and decades of experience. Cerebral Brewing, that recently moved into the Arts District. They moved 90% of their operations from Denver into Aurora into the Arts District. They are a very well-known brewery, and they've moved their operations into Aurora. And so the point I'm trying to make is we have some very high caliber folks that have moved into the area. They've been part of these meetings about creating a taxing district to help fund some of these improvements. And so I think the exciting thing is that we really now have a group of people who are to making this work. They see the opportunity that we have and the opportunity that we have ahead of us. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start to lay the groundwork. I'm sure staff has a lot more context to provide, but that's what I wanted to say, I guess, for introduction purposes. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to introduce it.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, and we'll go ahead and turn it over now to, is it Daniel or Andrea? Andrea, I think. Or Mindy.
You're muted. You're muted.
Somebody's muted, yeah.
Sorry about that. Actually, Mindy Parnes, our long-range planning manager, is going to start our presentation off
Okay.
with a discussion of some of the area history and to feed into how we are getting to where we are.
Fortunately, I have to stop sharing to unmute myself. Okay, so we'll go pretty quickly here. Here we are. Good morning. I'm Mindy Parnes. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager, and I'm here mostly to talk about all the planning that's been done on this corridor. And it's been years and years and years of planning, and now it's time to get some action plans done here. And it's all about talking about the potential for a special district. We'll explore what that special district might be. We had a previous focus area where we looked at Colfax and we met with all the community. This is a list of all the plans we've done since 1974. We've tried to do a Main Street, we've done market studies, we've done arts plans over and over and over again, and we continue to enhance the area. And recently, people have been having these Northwest community forums where they've been talking, and this is where the idea for the special district has come from. All the plans actually have always mentioned the need for a special district. Over the years, there have been some really great efforts, and along with the emergence of a lot of community organizations, businesses, the arts community has strengthened over the years. And this is just a small list of all those people that are interested in the area. Each of these have their own defined visions and missions, and all of them express goals to strengthen the community, whether it be to support the residents and housing, to do improve health and safety, to feed the the people with great restaurants or to strengthen the local businesses and the arts community there, which is very strong. This is some of the visioning that we've done before, and I think you see somebody over there familiar, Mr. Medina was a participant at the time, and we had a lot of participation over the years. This is actually the vision, the latest vision statement, and was very long, a vision statement, but it was intended to include everybody's thoughts there. This is the vision that was previously done. In review of the plans and studies, what continually is noted, though, is this need for a special district to support specifically the Colfax corridor. Such a district must reflect, though, its community and can in part serve as a centralized repository for all these groups and a marketing platform for all these groups too. There are a number of legal, though, requirements to establish this special district, so we have to move kind of quickly. A primary goal is to establish a clearly defined community-focused action plan, and inventory everybody that's out there and identify trusted voices and have in the community and have those voices part of this PUMA effort to identify what we're going to call a community-focused action plan. So I'll just hand it over to Andrea, who's going to talk a little bit about the forum and the specifics of the special district.
Thank you, Mindy. So as Mindy mentioned, there has been a lot of planning and redevelopment efforts that have gone on for 20 years or more. I will say that this effort is anticipated to be sort of a joint effort between the city's planning department and as well as the Aurora Urban Renewal Authority. And I would like to acknowledge that our two outside members of the authority board, Commissioner Lynn Baca and Johnny Watson, have both graciously joined us today to talk about this because it's a partnership between the city and the authority to bring about redevelopment in line with the community in this area. And as many of you know, we have four urban renewal areas that are around or associated with the original Aurora area, four of them in Adams County and another one in Arapahoe County, which is the south side of Colfax. And so what started out was a council-driven effort to meet with the community in 2021 and 2022 as we were coming out of the pandemic to discuss what was going on specifically along the Colfax corridor from roughly the Arts District to the Yosemite border. And several things. This was completely community driven over the 2 years, but gave the city and the community an opportunity to collaborate on resolving issues that came up. And this chart just lists the things that the community at that point in time during these last 2 years had said were important. Physical improvements to make the area safer, including, and we've done things like improvements to Fletcher Plaza, lighting through Public Works, and signage and banners for the Arts District to denote the special districts that are there. Activating spaces with programmed events to create a density of people walking around, and safety was a listed community concern, Also, of course, there were discussions around our homeless population and housing, and we think that these are important things to the community, and housing and community engagement was raised as an issue. And as both Mindy and council member commissioner, also Gardner, indicated, this the community engagement is very important. And that's the real difference here, is that the special district discussion that will happen was not only brought up in the Northwest Forum, and actually prior to that in other plans, but the community wants to participate and drive what happens there. So this initiative will be a bottom-up initiative that will be led by a third-party consultant, not really by the city. And so a lot of the outreach that is projected to happen in this initiative would be led by PUMA, which is Progressive Urban Management Associates. The principal of that firm, Brad Siegel, has more than 35 years of experience in this realm and has led numerous special district discussions, community plans. They were involved with the East Denver plan, which is just on the other side of Yosemite and Denver along Colfax. And so it's envisioned that this third-party initiative, there would be more outreach. Creating a special district and is a very legal process, and there are certain requirements, and we are trying to hit those by the end of 2024 should we decide to proceed with this. So we would need to start pretty quickly, and that's why time is sort of the essence here. PUMA is proposing a 3-step process that starts with addressing district feasibility. What does a special district, asking the community, what does a special district look like to you? Where are the boundaries of that district? And continuing that discussion and educating people on what the various options are for that and how they are different and how they function and what sources of revenue they use. They all have different revenue streams that would be available to them. The second step is the outreach and the community development plan. Again, complete outreach to the community, all the stakeholders, whether they be residents or businesses. We have a significant number of arts stakeholders. We also have a significant number of nonprofit organizations within the area. And what is the community need for the development of this area so that it can compatibly grow? And then finally, the third step of meeting the legal requirements. If the neighborhood decides to move forward with a special district, which one and what are the legal requirements of that? So it's a 3-phase process. We're looking to initiate that this fall, and then do some research and work with the team to provide information to them about the district so that they can start with community outreach in earnest at the first of the year. So what's listed here are some of the activities that the third-party consultant PUMA would do. They would lead the community to this effort. So, and as I said, this is the funds are for this initiative would be from the Urban Renewal Authority And so the next step should the committee wish to recommend moving forward with the outline components of this initiative, the next step would be to take it to the Aurora Urban Renewal Authority Board for an allocation of funding to make that happen.
Okay, so we can answer any questions if you want. I do want to put a plug in for the Colfax Canvas this Saturday, the mural party. So
Councilmember Lawson, sorry. Do you have questions? Oh, you're muted as well.
You were going to go first with your questions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because it's a little bit confusing on the taxing district. So I know it was mentioned that it would be either a bid or a DDA. And so when you talk about community-driven plan, I'm a little bit confused because it sounds like it would actually be a business improvement district or that other thing, whatever it's called, the
Downtown Development
Downtown
Authority.
Development Authority.
Yes.
So obviously business improvement, you're taxing the businesses, you're not taxing homeowners or renters. What does the DDA, who gets taxed in the DDA?
The DDA is, can use the same, they can use tax increment financing, they can also bond. And so depending on the authority that they are given by the city council, who has to establish that component unit, they could use property taxes of all property owners, and they could have a broader range of improvements that they could do other than just businesses. As you've indicated, the business improvement district is a district that's made up solely of businesses and uses an additional mill levy,
Right.
whereas a DDA can use tax increment financing. So there are no additional taxes. The taxes within that area are set aside very similarly to how they are within the urban renewal area. And what I will say is that there is an overlapping urban renewal area that the tax increment financing provision would be closed in order to allow for a wider
Right.
increment to be used.
So there's four, you said 4 urban renewal areas.
Yes.
That overlap. How do we actually make money as a city on sales tax or property taxes if we're doing the tax increment financing, or I mean,
so it would
because
start
we have
with a new
Fitzsimmons, for example. I mean, the whole bioscience and so forth are urban renewal, and they don't get taxed.
So first of all, in starting a new taxing jurisdiction that would use it, there would be a base that would be set. That base already exists and would be high, and so there is a certain amount of taxation that would go back to the taxing jurisdictions already, because there would be a base in both property and sales taxes.
Okay.
That might be used.
Okay, and that would be sufficient to be able to create all this other kind of infrastructure that is needed to build out the plan.
So, and the DDA would have the authority to recommend using those funds to implement items within the community development plan that is also envisioned with this.
Okay. And then just one more thing on the, because I remember, what was it called? Bax Aurora? Was that
Yes.
something? Why did that never take off? So I guess, this sounds wonderful. It's just, it's been attempted time after time. What was the failure? Why would it, is it just because we have more interest now?
Number one, it's more interest, and this is the difference. So the Fax Aurora initiative was a loose knit. It was a 501 C6, which is like a chamber of commerce type of model. And so they were trying to get membership. And I think that was solely businesses and solely, and it was voluntary. Again, the benefit to something like a DDA or a business improvement district is that they use taxing mills that they vote on, right?
Right.
And so those revenues, financially, this would be a little more stable, in my personal opinion, than a membership organization. That's voluntary. So because everybody pays their taxes and
Right. And then on the arts district, because they're getting, I mean, we basically subsidize them with $1 a year rent. How would they be contributing to the bid? If they're not making, they're making revenues, but we're subsidizing them.
so we are currently, they currently receive funds from, they are no longer tenants in 1400 Dallas. They have moved to their own location that they are renting, and they have raised a lot of their own funds. They would be a stakeholder in this process. They are selling, they kind of do galleries and things like that that may generate sales tax for the sales that the artists make and so forth. And they would be a stakeholder in this selection, and they would be their ideas and their thoughts. In many other communities, bids and DDAs also take a portion of their funds to help support neighborhood infrastructure, and our arts infrastructure is designed to be a destination to draw people to the area. And so those the
Yeah.
generation of people coming into the area, the events, the plays, the shows would all hopefully have spin-off and indirect effects that would increase taxes.
So we've had all those, but that's the problem, is we've had the art district for decades that we've tried to use as the catalyst to bring business, and that hasn't. So I guess at this point you're seeing more businesses
absolutely
interest, because without the businesses, the art district doesn't happen without business around it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Lawson?
Bergan, can I respond to your question real fast?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so your question about Fax Aurora, that's kind of what I was referring to in my introduction. So over the years, there's been a variety of iterations. So whether it's Fax Aurora or some of you who go back even further will remember Pam Wilson and the North Aurora Business Alliance, and there's the Aurora Economic Opportunity Coalition, and there's all these groups over the years. And from at least from my perspective, everybody's kind of rowing in different directions. And what I envision with this plan is there are things that the city is good at, there are things that the government is good at, and there are things that the government is not good at. But one of the things that I think the government is good at is getting everybody together. We can bring everybody together, get everybody in one plan, and get everybody rowing in the same direction. Fax partnership, they were designed, as Andrea said, to be kind of like a quasi chamber of commerce for that area. North Aurora Business Alliance was similar. Aurora Economic Opportunity Coalition is kind of an immigrant business, kind of a chamber as well. I mean, they all kind of have different mission statements, I guess. And so what I envision with this plan is that we're able to get everybody rowing in the same direction. And I think the arts district, to the second question, is part of that. I think like Rhino in Denver is a good example. So Rhino they have a taxing district, they have an improvement district, and they also have an arts district within that taxing district. And so they're not mutually exclusive. The arts district can exist within the taxing district. And so it can complement each other. But as you said, Councilmember Bergan, and I agree with you, the arts district, I don't think can thrive on its own without those complementary businesses. And I think, the example that I always like to give is if I go see a show, what do I want to go do after the show? I want to go have a drink. I want to go have dinner. I want to go have dessert, things like that. And if those types of things don't exist, then it's going to be really hard for that arts district to thrive. That's part of the reason why Rhino and some of the other arts districts in the metro area have been able to be successful, because they have those other type of complementary businesses. And so that's really what I envision with this plan is we're able to generate those complementary businesses to where the arts district can complement the overall vision for the district and not just be an arts district, but to be an overall revenue generating area for the city.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Lawson?
Thank you. So I definitely think this is a good idea, especially with the bus rapid transit that's going to be implemented going down that corridor. We definitely need something that would be fantastic. This would probably be a good idea. The question I have for you, just kind of understanding, I see the list of businesses that have kind of opted in interest in this. With those businesses, which there's quite a few, there's other businesses that surround this area. So are they just automatically going to be opt into this tax? Maybe they don't want to, or how does that work in these type of districts?
The outreach component is really going to identify our boundaries, who's included, who wants to be included. That's why we're going to have to do the community action plan. And it will be the plan that the special district lives by, is guided by. So we'll explore all that, and we'll have to with Puma to see who is going to be part of the initiative.
And how
But
much
we do need to make sure that it's embraced by the community.
Right. And I see that you have businesses, and I'm aware of those businesses and those organizations, but there's also other surrounding little businesses as well that are in that corridor.
Yes.
And I guess I'm just wondering, there may be some that may have some resistance to it, or, I guess I'm just trying to understand that. Has that ever happened where you may not be able to get everybody on board, but you still have the district? I don't know how the facts, all of the history of the facts, but that was more of a membership organization. But in you understanding these districts, if you have some resistance or something from some businesses that may not want to be in this because maybe they don't want the extra taxation, even though there's a benefit to it, how does that work? Even though they're going to still be in the district?
So Andrea, do you want to cover this? But the thing is also, it'd be similar to what Chance does for the bid, for the Havana bid.
Okay, so that's the example of what this would be like then, like what's happening.
Yeah, that's the most.
Okay,
That's an example of a bid. And by the way, Puma worked with the city of Aurora and the neighborhood there to do that particular business improvement district.
Okay.
So the business improvement district requires a vote by all the businesses that are there, right? So both residents and property owners. The DDA has a slightly different structure, but as Mindy indicated, the real goal here is the outreach to the community that Puma will do, and it will be all inclusive initiative, and there will be lots of education that occurs at that level so that people, businesses, residents, nonprofits can see what their piece of the pie would be in any of these structures. And so, you know, so businesses generally have to opt in. There's a formal election for a business improvement district, but it will be a collaborative effort, and people will go. And as I said, the engagement with the community is very, very important for bringing that.
Okay. And when we used this organization before for the Havana bid, I mean, what was their approximate cost to do this? Or is that still being negotiated?
So the cost that we have estimated in the is $200,000.
Okay.
Okay. And as I indicated, and as I indicated, that's something that we can fund through the Aurora Urban Renewal Authority if the commissioners choose to do that.
Okay, I think that's all my questions right now. I'll probably, as this moves forward, I'll probably have a few more questions, but I think that's all I need right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lawson. And then just, I know this comes up all the time, and you mentioned it in the presentation about safety. So a lot of, you know, that has been a huge concern from, you know, businesses, existing businesses and businesses that might want to move into the area. So would this bid or DDA be able to contribute monies to address security?
Yes, they could hire private security. I think some of the other districts do that. It can be a part of that community plan to address concerns of the neighborhood. I would, if there are, I think there are some other people with questions in the, if you're so inclined.
No, we don't. Councilmember Sundberg was not able to join us. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We need to move on to 3C, which is Our Parks, Our Place.
Good morning, everyone.
Councilmember Bergan, I think, are we gonna, I didn't hear, are we moving this forward? Or?
Oh, so sorry. Thank you. Yes, I'm okay with moving it forward.
Okay, thank you. I will be as well.
Yes, and then, and just Andrea, council obviously is going to be involved in this as it moves forward.
Yes, all the council members are commissioners on the board. Okay. So this will come back to you in that forum.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right.
Congratulations. Bergan, we'd be happy to provide updates as well as this process moves forward.
Thank you. All right, Michelle.
Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. Appreciate your time this morning. My name is Michelle Teller, and I am a senior planner within the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. And joining me this morning is Ryan French, who is a project manager also within the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. Our goal this morning is really to provide an update of the Our Parks, Our Places master plan. We're going to highlight some of the upcoming approval processes that we have and how that will relate back to this committee, and then just highlight some of the key dates that this plan will be available for public review and comment. So Our Parks, Our Places is a master plan that will set the vision for where pros should be 5 to 10 years into the future. This plan was really built off of 5 key objectives that came directly from the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan, and those included community connections, equitable access, not just to physical spaces, but also to information, health and safety of the individual and the environment, sustainable growth, and then operational efficiencies, knowing that we need to maintain all the spaces that we are growing into. This project started in May of last year and was broken up into 4 key phases. The first was really focused on setting the baseline with inventory and conditions analysis. Then we jumped into a gaps assessment or a gaps analysis and needs assessment with phase 2. And then in phase 3, took all of that information from the first 2 and started drafting some of those recommendations all the way through phase 4, which is where we are today and starting to put together that draft document. So one of the key things that we wanted to discuss with the committee today was our upcoming approval processes and how this master plan will be approved in the city. So there will really be two processes. The first is that this is going to be approved as the guiding master plan for the department. And the second is that this has been advised to us to be approved by reference through the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan. So we will technically need to amend the comp plan to make sure that there is reference in that document to our master plan. So we will be coming back in the future to this committee with that advisory recommendation ask. And so I'm going to walk through the various phases and the accomplishments that we had in each. So the first phase was doing that existing conditions and inventory report as mentioned. And the purpose of this was really setting the foundation for the rest of the PROS master plan. So we did a pretty comprehensive review of all of our data and looked at all of the different local and regional planning documents. So any plans that may have set recommendations beyond just the city. So really looking at some of the county plans and some of the other regional plans as well. And then we also started a pretty robust community outreach process where we were out doing surveys at pop-ups, at special events. We held several open houses, had focus groups, and more. So I would say last summer, Ryan and I were really out in the community trying to promote this project and get as much feedback as we could. Within this first phase, we worked with the community to set 6 guiding principles that were really extended off of those first 5 objectives from the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan. So these were really guided from the community, and then we had also gone back through our open house process to make sure that we got these correct. So the 6 guiding principles that guide this document and all of the future recommendations include meet evolving needs of the community, strengthen connectivity to PROS assets, serve as stewards to our environment, provide opportunities for lifelong education, proactively invest in the present and future, and then provide welcoming and safe spaces. And one thing that we wanted to highlight as part of this project is that we wanted to look at the relationship between the PROS system and real estate, land use, and economic development. And our consultant found that within a 2 to 3 minute walk from any of PROS spaces that are developed, there is a 20% premium in real estate value, which includes businesses. And up to a 5-minute walk, there is a 10% increase in value. So a lot of this project, we really wanted to focus on starting to build some of those partnerships with various businesses and entities so that we could continue those after this project. And then into phase 2, we wanted to dive into really understanding the gaps and needs of our system. So it was really important to us to keep equity at the core of this process, from the public engagement that we had all the way through our recommendations and strategies. So you'll see that we have this equity value statement in lieu of just having one recommendation dedicated to equity. So this will really act as the umbrella to which all those recommendations and strategies are written. And so with the help of the public, we've defined equity as both the means to creating and sustaining healthy communities and an end that benefits us all. So really recognizing that people have different circumstances, different allocated resources and opportunities are needed to reach that equal outcome. And keeping equity in mind, we also conducted this gap analysis and needs assessment to really understand how our current system compares to all of the needs identified in Aurora. So the map on the right identifies the highest need neighborhoods and really takes into account measuring access to all of the parks, recreation, and open spaces, as well as the amenities within each. And we really wanted to make sure that this was not just data-based, but also included understanding how the community saw those gaps and needs and where they identified those as well. And to create this map, we looked at 3 key factors, which included density, really looking at the neighborhoods that have residential in them today, demographic vulnerability, which is made up of the social vulnerability indicators and health indicators. So one example is that we looked specifically at where there were high levels of childhood obesity, since parks and open space is really correlated to benefit those. And then we also looked at park acreage per 1,000 residents. And then we also did a few other analyses I wanted to touch on, which included looking at tree equity, really seeing where the greatest need for city trees exists, looking at the community feedback. So one of the exercises that we did was really having the community go out on maps, either in person or on a survey, and tell us what they wanted to see in their neighborhoods and what they thought were missing. We did a program seasonality analysis, really looking at how our programs are dispersed throughout the year, who they're really serving, and how many folks we're reaching throughout the year. And then also ecological connectivity, knowing that our open spaces are really vital to creating those key habitat corridors. And throughout these phases, we had over 16,000 touch points with the community, which this was just updated yesterday from our consultants that were hitting closer to about 17,000. So we really were out in the community throughout this entire process, through all the various methods that we had. We made sure that all of our materials were translated in Aurora's top 6 most used languages. We had interpreters on site at our open houses, and we really wanted to make sure this vision was set by the community and reflected their needs. So we're really proud of the number of folks that we touched base with throughout this process. And then phase 3, we started taking all that information from phase 1 and 2 and started refining some of those ideas. So this is where we really started to draft some recommendations and strategies. And with the help of the consultant, we were able to really figure out where priorities were and where some of those priority recommendations landed, and help to create an action plan around some of those as well. One thing I wanted to touch on within phase 3 is that we had conducted a dog park study as part of this master plan. This study will be approved separately from the master plan, but really ran the course with the master plan through all of the public engagement that we had, and through a lot of those gap and needs assessments as well. And the purpose of this study was to develop design standards and recommendations for construction of dog parks within our system. So we really took a comprehensive analysis looking at where all of our dog parks exist today, what their conditions are, and started to set some best practices. So you will see this referenced in that document as well. And then into phase 4, which is where we are today. So basically taking everything we heard and finally putting it into a document, which is great. So with that, we wanted to identify some key upcoming dates for the committee to put on calendars. So we are hoping that the draft will be posted around 10/2 through 10/16 for public review and comment. So staff does have a copy in their hands that we are currently reviewing, and once we review for completion, it will be ready to send out to all of the boards, commissions, committee, public members that we've worked with throughout this entire process, and we'll continue to refine that as we get comments as well. And we are anticipating that we will start our approval processes in the first quarter of next year. We have a pretty lengthy list of folks that we need to go to for all of those approvals, including the Planning and Economic Development Policy Committee. So just wanted to put that on your radar as we come back to you early next year with more information. And with that, I think that's all we have for you this morning. Thank you again for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Councilmember Lawson, do you have questions?
Yes, thank you, Michelle, for the presentation. And, I'm glad you guys did a lot of community engagement. It seems like you hit a lot of people in the community. I guess when we're talking about I see on here it's health and safety. There has been, I know some things come to me about some of the parks not being safe, or people don't feel adequately safe for different reasons. There could be different things going on in different parks. We have a lot of parks in the city of Aurora. So it just depends on, where these parks are. It didn't seem like I see you have health and safety on there, but it didn't seem like through your presentation, it's really being addressed. So I see in your last slide, you have those points that you're covering, but I really don't see a safety. How we're going to actually implement some safety things within some of our parks. Do we need more lighting? Do we need cameras? Do we need more people going through the parks, rangers? there's a lot of concern about that. People walking through parks and not getting, different things happening. Also to the youth and the kids and just people in those parks. But I didn't really see that in your presentation. So can you tell me how that's being addressed? Because this is all wonderful, but I have to bring up the bad news. There's things that happen in parks. And we do get those type of questions, from the wards to the at-large.
No, of course. So this presentation was meant to be just really high level informational, but we did discuss with the consultants the ways that we can try to mitigate that perceived safety risk. So you'll see in the master plan that there is mention of, design, trying to find ways to create spaces to be more welcoming. So whether that's through signage, through the way that we design some of these spaces and the entrances, you will see that in the document. So that is something that we definitely touched on. And we also discussed through the open houses too. So to your point, we did hear, from the community that there were some concerns about safety, and we wanted to make sure that that was addressed through this plan. So that will be in the draft document.
Okay, so Councilmember Bergan, can I just do one little small follow-up, just a tiny one here? So you said that you're going to develop with signage and other things, but also other possible considerations to make some of these parks safer. Like I mentioned, maybe there needs to be more lighting, looking at some of these hot spots. If you want people to go to parks, you have to make them safe and people have to feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of that is going to come as a separate initiative. So one thing that our director, Brooke Bell, had tasked us with was looking at a lighting study, was really looking at all these alternatives. So those will be a little bit more strategic level than what the master plan will cover, but this will definitely give us the jumping board to start to dive into some of those specific elements.
Michelle, if I can chime in to answer Councilmember Lawson's question, safety is a top priority for our parks. We are actively tracking data. We have mobile camera units that we're deploying to hotspots. We have engaged a nighttime security patrol that are patrolling areas where we're seeing crimes committed, and they have a direct link in to APD. So there's consistent coordination with APD on crime within the parks, tracking, and we're providing regular updates to the Parks Foundation Quality Life Policy Committee. I'm happy to forward you the latest update we provided last month, which provided an overview of some of the strategies that we're deploying. Obviously, we need to be nimble and adaptive to the issues in the community, but we are working on them diligently. And the planning initiative that Michelle is referencing will just enforce the work that we're currently doing.
Thank you. I'll echo Councilmember Lawson's a concern, just because Laura, that I've had a couple parks that have had some safety concerns as well. And I know I appreciate the mobile camera. I think we need to put in our budget some additional mobile cameras for sure, because we've got a big city with a lot of parks. I have a question on the whole equity thing, because you mentioned the dog park, and is there a dog park in Ward 6? Because I get asked about that quite a bit. Do we, like, people wanting a dog park? I don't think we have one.
So I believe you do have a private one that exists down there, but not a city-owned dog park. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, overall, I will say people want dog parks everywhere. Anywhere we can get them, they had said that they wanted more dog parks. So I think that really is our goal, to try to distribute them throughout all the neighborhoods so that the neighborhoods do have access to those. Okay. And in every ward as well.
And then I guess I wanted to see a little, I know this was very high level, but I kind of wanted to see, what are we doing to complete the parks that we currently have? I have I call it Dome Park, but it's just grass right now and dirt. And it's been that way for the entire 21 years I've lived here. And so I was hoping to see, what we're looking at in terms of finishing the existing parks, developing the ones that are not yet developed, regional parks that could be, and then I know you didn't mention the trail system, but that would be part of it as well, or is that separate?
Yeah, so I can maybe answer the first part and then allow Nicole to jump in if she'd like. So just at a high level, as part of this project, we're really developing a GIS, Geographic Information Systems tool, to help track all of the undeveloped spaces that we have, and then to also look at where those areas of greatest need are. So I think Dome Park is a great example. If we see that there's really not a ton of service to the residents in those areas, we can look at specifically what we can put in those spaces. Is that an area that's a top priority because there is a gap? So I think this master plan really sets a great foundation for helping us to track and understand where those spaces and needs are.
Right.
But I'll let Nicole jump in as well if you'd like to add anything.
Yes, good morning. My name is Nicole Ankeny, and I'm the manager of planning, design, and construction. When it comes specifically to Dome Park, we are just under contract with a consultant to begin the site master planning process for that. So as soon as we have a schedule put together and a draft of what our public outreach component is going to look like, we're going to be posting that on Engage Aurora and beginning that engagement piece specifically for that site. For this master plan, this is very high level and really sets the tone and the goals and the vision for the overall system. And then we will roll into next year into doing a strategic plan that starts to get into finer detail. So overall, this master plan is very high level and is intended to put us on the right track so that we can start drilling down into some more of these details. We are beginning to look at all of the undeveloped parks throughout the city. We essentially need to lay that groundwork through the GIS and through analysis. We're also trying to staff up. We have a number of staffing vacancies right now on our planning team. So we're looking to fill those vacancies and are hopeful we can get those filled in the very near future so that we can jump into this and tackle those undeveloped park spaces.
Okay, yeah, because you mentioned phase 2 gaps and needs, and obviously the gaps are those amenities that are still not developed. But when you talk about what are the needs and from the community perspective, there's another component that we're not talking about, which is park fees and impact fees, and that dictates obviously the funding, and some of those monies have to stay within the area that they are collected. So that's another complication, I guess, in terms of what will be funded.
Absolutely, and I'm working on an RFP to address. You're referring to our PROS dedication and development criteria manual and how that process occurs through the planning and development process. So we are planning to take a deeper dive into that development manual and analyze those fees and look at being responsive to the development community, but also to the community at large. So that is another component where we do need to perform some additional analysis, and is coming up within the next year.
Okay, real good. And you said that this would come back to PED probably early next year for the UDO changes?
Yes, for amending the comprehensive plan to reference the document. Yes.
Okay, very good. Anything else, Councilmember Lawson?
No, I have no additional questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. And we are short on time, but I know the only report that I do see is the Havana bid. Chance, are you with us? I see her. Chance, are you there?
Sorry about that. My button froze. I kept pushing it and it wasn't undoing. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to welcome you all to our upcoming Halloween events. You can go to onhavannastreet.com. We'll have a drive-in movie at Hocus Pocus at Sam's No. 3. We'll have Halloween costume contest. We also have a networking event that we're partnering with the African Chamber. And we also have our trick-or-treat at the Gardens on Havana. Next month, our annual meeting is November 15th at the Stampede. We'll be catering from the Argentinian caterer at the Stampede, so please do join us. We are going to keep it short, not a long PowerPoint presentation this year. We have a videographer, so we're hoping to do kind of like more of a video overview of all the events that we were able to do in 2023. So thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Chance. And then Elena, small business.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to provide a brief update. Since the fall of 2022, the SBDC has been part of a collaborative of 13 community and business organizations led by the Center for Community Wealth Building. This collaborative developed an online marketplace called Shop BIPOC to support business owners who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, which includes Asian, Latino, biracial, and multiracial people. I wanted to let you know that we currently have 415 BIPOC small businesses from the entire Denver metro area, including Aurora, that are offering a variety of services and products. The goal of the marketplace is to connect consumers and anchor institutions such as University of Colorado, Anschutz Medical Center, and Metro State University, among others, to these BIPOC-owned businesses to increase the growth opportunities and expand their markets by purchasing from them. I am very happy to report that on August 31st, we hosted a very successful event to launch this online marketplace at the People's Building. Approximately, we had 300 people attend the event. 5 Aurora caterers who are clients of the SBDC catered the event. Guests included business owners, community members, representatives of different local governments, and nonprofit and business organizations. Councilmember Marcano represented the city and gave the welcoming speech. I want to recognize Aaron Vega. You know him, he's the curator for the People's Building. Andrew Amanek and the SBDC team for their help and support of this initiative and event. But I also want to mention that the city is working on raising awareness within the different departments about BIPOC small businesses and Shop Local in Aurora. On Monday, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, the SBDC, and Community Wealth Building conducted a Lunch and Learn session to educate city employees about how their departments can purchase from local small businesses and at the same time support the growth of the community. Prieto's Catering, an Aurora food truck owner, and SBDC business did the catering for the training. There was a great response and the event was well attended. Because of this, we're actually planning on having another training event on the next few months. I will be providing our report regarding all of our SBDC outreach efforts in the November PED meeting. I just wanted to share these 2 great events that happened recently, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Elena. And that is it for the reports. I did want to say Southlands is having a wine walk tomorrow evening, which is very fun if you have never been there. So our next meeting is scheduled for October 11th. Unless there's any conflicts, we'll keep that date. Anything else, Councilmember Lawson, last minute?
There's nothing for me.
Okay, well, I want to thank all the presenters. You did an excellent job. I appreciate everyone that attended the meeting. Sorry, we just went a little bit over time. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Great job.